There are certain places that exist on maps but somehow feel like they shouldn't. The tunnel I'm talking about was one of them. I grew up in a small town in northern England, where old railway infrastructure was scattered throughout the countryside. Most of it had been abandoned for decades. Rusted tracks disappeared into forests. Crumbling signal stations stood empty beside overgrown paths. One place always stood out: an abandoned railway tunnel hidden deep in the hills about 30 minutes outside town. Locals called it Black Hollow Tunnel. The tunnel stretched nearly a mile through a mountain and hadn't been used since the 1960s. According to local rumors, a maintenance accident during construction killed several workers. Some people claimed the tunnel was haunted. Others said strange noises could be heard from inside at night. Most of us dismissed it as typical small-town folklore. At least we did until the summer of 2023. It started when my friend Ethan found an old online forum discussing abandoned locations in our county. One thread mentioned Black Hollow Tunnel. A user claimed they entered the tunnel at night and heard voices coming from deep inside, despite being completely alone. Another person wrote that they saw lights moving far inside the darkness. A third claimed their camera stopped working every time they crossed a certain point. The comments were years old. Still, the stories caught our attention. There were 5 of us: me, Ethan, Luke, Connor, and Jamie. All in our early 20s, the kind of group that constantly searched for abandoned buildings to explore. Looking back, I wish we had chosen literally anywhere else. One Saturday afternoon, we decided to visit the tunnel. The weather was clear. The hike took about 40 minutes through woodland trails before we finally saw it. The entrance looked like a giant black mouth carved into the hillside. Dark stone surrounded the opening. Old railway tracks disappeared into complete darkness. Even standing outside, the place felt wrong. The air was noticeably colder. No birds sang nearby, no insects buzzed. The forest seemed unusually quiet. Luke laughed nervously. "Looks welcoming." Nobody replied. We switched on our flashlights and stepped inside. The temperature dropped immediately. Our footsteps echoed endlessly through the massive tunnel. Water dripped from the ceiling. The beam from my flashlight illuminated damp brick walls covered in moss. For the first few minutes, everything seemed normal. Creepy, sure, but normal. We joked around, took photos, recorded videos. The tunnel stretched endlessly ahead. After about 15 minutes of walking, daylight from the entrance had completely disappeared behind us. Now there was only darkness. Absolute darkness. The kind that swallows everything beyond the reach of your flashlight. Then Ethan stopped walking. "What?" I asked. He turned around. "Did you hear that?" Everyone froze. For several seconds there was only silence. Then we heard it. A metallic clang, far behind us, like someone hitting steel with a hammer. Clang! The sound echoed through the tunnel. Connor looked toward the entrance. Maybe something fell. Nobody sounded convinced. There shouldn't have been anyone else out there. The hike alone discouraged most visitors. We listened. Nothing. After a minute, we continued deeper. The tunnel curved slightly, preventing us from seeing very far ahead. 20 minutes later, we reached a section where old maintenance alcoves had been carved into the walls. Small rooms barely large enough for workers to stand in while trains passed. Most were empty. One wasn't. As my flashlight swept across an alcove, I saw what looked like a person standing inside. I nearly screamed. My heart slammed against my ribs. Then I realized it was an old wooden support beam leaning against the wall. Everyone laughed at me. I laughed too, but the feeling of unease remained. A few minutes later, Jamie suddenly pointed ahead. "Guys?" We stopped. About 50 feet away, a small light flickered in the darkness. It looked like a flashlight, a faint white glow. Everyone stared. "Someone else is here," Connor said. The light remained motionless, then it vanished, just disappeared. Nobody spoke. Ethan raised his flashlight. "Hello?" His voice echoed endlessly. No response. "Probably another explorer," Luke said. but his voice sounded shaky. We continued forward. When we reached the spot where the light had appeared, there was nothing. No person, no equipment, no side passage, nothing. Just empty tunnel. That's when Jamie noticed something. Footprints. Fresh muddy footprints on the tracks, only one set, leading deeper inside. "Guess someone really is here," he said. The footprints continued ahead for a while, then suddenly stopped. Not faded, not turned around. Stopped. As if whoever made them simply vanished. We stared at the final footprint. Nobody had an explanation. An uncomfortable silence settled over the group. For the first time, leaving sounded like a good idea, but curiosity won. We kept going, and that was our biggest mistake. About 10 minutes later, Connor's flashlight died, without warning. 1 second it worked, the next it didn't. He replaced the batteries, still nothing. The flashlight was completely dead. "That's weird." Then Luke's flashlight began flickering. A moment later, mine did the same. The beams dimmed before returning to normal. Everyone exchanged nervous looks. The tunnel suddenly felt much colder. Then we heard it. Footsteps. Not ours. Somewhere ahead. Slow, deliberate, walking across the tracks. The sound echoed through the darkness. Step, step, step. Every hair on my body stood up. Someone was definitely in the tunnel, but whoever it was never appeared in our lights. The footsteps continued for nearly 20 seconds, then stopped. Silence returned. Complete silence. None of us said a word. And deep down, I think every one of us realized the same thing. Something wasn't right in Black Hollow Tunnel. Nobody wanted to admit they were scared, but fear was becoming impossible to ignore. We agreed to continue another 10 minutes before turning around. That decision would haunt us for years. As we walked, the tunnel seemed different somehow. Longer, darker. The air felt heavier. Several times I glanced behind me because I thought I saw movement. Every time there was nothing, just darkness. Then Jamie stopped suddenly. "What now?" I asked. He pointed toward the wall. My flashlight followed. Written on the brick surface were words. Large white letters. "Help me." Fresh. As if someone had written them recently. Connor frowned. That wasn't here before. He was right. We would have noticed. The writing looked new. The paint was still bright. Below it were strange scratches running down the wall. Deep scratches. Far too large to be made by fingernails. Nobody touched them. Nobody wanted to. We decided it was time to leave. Immediately. The moment we turned around, a loud bang exploded somewhere behind us. Everyone jumped. The sound echoed violently through the tunnel. Then another, and another. Like heavy doors slamming shut. Boom, boom, boom! The noises seemed to be getting closer. We began walking faster, then running. The sounds continued behind us. Every few seconds, another violent slam echoed through the darkness. Finally, they stopped. The silence that followed felt worse. We slowed down, breathing heavily. Then Ethan looked back. His face turned pale. "What is that?" We turned. Far down the tunnel stood a figure, motionless, watching us, too far away to identify. Just a dark silhouette. Nobody moved. The figure remained still. Then it took a step forward. Every survival instinct inside me screamed, "Run." We ran. The figure never chased us. At least not that we saw. But every time we looked back, it seemed closer. Impossible distances vanished between glances. Eventually, we reached a maintenance alcove and ducked inside. Everyone was breathing hard. Nobody spoke. Then Connor whispered, "Listen." At first I heard nothing. Then I noticed it. A voice, very faint, coming from somewhere inside the tunnel. It sounded like a woman, whispering. The words were impossible to understand. The whispering continued, soft, constant, like someone speaking directly into our ears. The sound seemed to come from every direction at once. Luke covered his ears. "Do you hear that?" Everyone nodded. The whispers grew louder, faster, more frantic. Then they stopped instantly.
Silence. Total silence. And that's when we noticed Jamie was missing. The alcove wasn't large. There was nowhere to hide. 1 second he had been standing beside us. Now he was gone. Panic erupted. We shouted his name repeatedly. No answer. Flashlights swept across the darkness. Nothing. Then we heard him scream. Far ahead, much deeper in the tunnel, a scream filled with absolute terror. We sprinted toward the sound. Our flashlights bounced wildly. Jamie! No response. Another scream echoed ahead. Then silence. We ran faster. The tunnel seemed endless. Every corner revealed more darkness. Finally, we reached a section where the tracks crossed an old maintenance platform. There we found Jamie, curled against a wall, shaking violently, crying. We rushed over. What happened? His face was white. He looked genuinely traumatized. For nearly a minute, he couldn't speak. Finally, he managed a sentence. There was someone standing behind you. The words chilled my blood. What? When we were hiding in the alcove.
He pointed at us. There was someone standing right behind all of you. Nobody said anything. Jamie began crying again. He was smiling. We didn't stay another second. The exploration was over. Whatever existed inside Black Hollow Tunnel could keep it. We just wanted out. The 5 of us moved together. Nobody separated. Nobody spoke. The atmosphere felt completely different now, like the tunnel knew we were leaving. Several times we heard footsteps following us. Whenever we stopped, they stopped too. Whenever we moved, they resumed. Always behind us, never visible. The exit should have taken less than 30 minutes to reach. Instead, nearly an hour passed, and we still couldn't see daylight. Panic started growing. The tunnel wasn't this long. It couldn't be. We checked our phones. No signal. The time displayed different numbers on each device. Some showed times that hadn't happened yet. Others displayed random symbols. None of it made sense. Then Ethan suddenly pointed ahead. A faint light appeared in the distance. Relief flooded through us. The exit. Finally, we hurried toward it. But as we approached, something felt wrong. The light wasn't daylight. It was too dim, too white. When we got closer, our stomachs dropped. It wasn't the exit. It was another tunnel entrance. Inside the tunnel, an opening that shouldn't have existed. We stared in disbelief. The passage descended into darkness, and from somewhere deep inside came whispering. The same whispering we had heard before. Nobody went near it. We turned away immediately. Then a scream erupted behind us. Not human, not animal, something else. A sound so unnatural that I still hear it in nightmares. The scream echoed through the tunnel. Then came footsteps, fast, running toward us, the sound of dozens of feet pounding across the tracks. We ran. Pure survival instinct took over. Nobody looked back. The footsteps thundered behind us, closer, closer, closer. Then suddenly daylight. The real exit appeared ahead. We burst from the tunnel and collapsed onto the ground outside. The footsteps stopped instantly. The forest was silent. No screams, no whispers. Nothing. We lay there gasping for air. None of us spoke for several minutes. Eventually, we gathered enough courage to look back. The tunnel entrance stood exactly where it had before, as if nothing had happened. We left immediately. Nobody argued. Nobody wanted to stay. For weeks afterward, strange things continued. Jamie suffered nightmares every night. Connor's flashlight was found in his backpack, despite being left inside the tunnel. Several photos from our phones showed unexplained figures standing in the darkness behind us. Most disturbing of all was one video Ethan recorded. The clip lasted only 7 seconds. It showed us walking through the tunnel. Nothing unusual at first. Then, just before the video ended, a pale face appeared from one of the maintenance alcoves, watching us, smiling. The face wasn't visible when the video was recorded, only afterward. We showed the footage to dozens of people. Nobody could explain it. A month later, Ethan returned to the tunnel with 2 coworkers. They wanted to see if the stories were true. He never went inside. Because when they arrived, they discovered something strange. The entrance had been sealed. Massive steel barriers blocked access completely. No explanation, no construction signs, nothing. Just a locked barrier covering the opening. To this day, none of us know what happened in Black Hollow Tunnel. Maybe there was a rational explanation. Maybe there wasn't. But one thing still bothers me. In the final frame of Ethan's video, right before it cuts out, the smiling face isn't looking at the camera. It's looking past it, at something standing directly behind Ethan. And whatever it was, it appeared to be smiling too. I never believed in cursed places. At least not until I spent one night inside an abandoned service tunnel beneath a shopping center. This happened in 2022 when I was 19. Back then, my friends and I were obsessed with urban exploration. We spent weekends sneaking into abandoned factories, empty schools, and forgotten buildings. Most of the time, it was harmless. We'd take pictures, post them online, and move on to the next location. Then my friend Aaron found something unusual. Beneath an old shopping center in our city was a network of maintenance tunnels built in the 1970s. Most workers used them for electrical wiring, plumbing, and deliveries. Years later, many sections were abandoned after renovations. The public wasn't supposed to access them anymore. Naturally, that made us want to see them even more. There were 4 of us: me, Aaron, Dylan, and Brooke. One Friday night, we found an unlocked maintenance door behind the shopping center. A staircase led underground. The moment we stepped inside, the noise of the city disappeared. The tunnel stretched ahead under flickering fluorescent lights. Concrete walls, rusty pipes, dust everywhere. At first it looked exactly like what we'd expected. Boring, forgotten, nothing special. We walked deeper. Several side corridors branched off in different directions. Most were blocked by locked gates. Others disappeared into darkness. About 20 minutes into exploring, we discovered something strange. A section of wall covered in hundreds of handwritten numbers. Not graffiti, not random scribbles, just numbers, thousands of them, written over each other in black marker. Some were tiny, others were huge. Every available inch of concrete had been covered. Brooke joked that someone had gotten very bored, but something about it felt unsettling, especially because many numbers repeated. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, everywhere. We took photos and continued walking. A few minutes later, Aaron noticed something else. Every tunnel sign pointed toward exits, storage rooms, or electrical stations, except one. At the end of a narrow corridor hung an old metal sign. The words had faded with age, but we could still read them. Level 11. None of us understood. The tunnels only had one underground level. There was no level 11. We assumed it was some kind of storage designation. Still, curiosity got the better of us. We followed the corridor. The deeper we went, the older everything looked. Dust thickened. Paint peeled from the walls. Several light fixtures had stopped working. Eventually, we reached a large steel door. The sign above it also read, Level 11. The door stood slightly open. A cold draft emerged from inside. Aaron pushed it wider. The room beyond wasn't a room at all. It was another tunnel, much older than the rest. The walls were brick instead of concrete. The ceiling was lower. And unlike the shopping center tunnels, this passage wasn't on any building plans we'd seen online. It shouldn't have existed. Still, we entered. That decision changed everything. The hidden tunnel extended far beneath the city. Unlike the maintenance corridors above, this place felt abandoned for decades. No lights worked. Only our flashlights illuminated the darkness. The tunnel seemed endless. Every few minutes we passed old doors sealed shut with rusted chains. None had labels. None had windows. Just endless doors. Then we noticed something strange. The tunnel wasn't silent. Someone was humming. A faint melody drifted through the darkness ahead, soft, slow, almost cheerful. We stopped immediately. The humming continued. It sounded close, maybe 50 feet away. "Someone's down here," Brooke whispered. That should have been impossible. The area was abandoned. No workers used it. No public access existed, yet someone was definitely humming. Aaron called out, "Hello?" The humming stopped. Instantly, the silence that followed felt unnatural, like whoever had been making the sound was now listening. We waited. Nothing happened. No reply. No footsteps. Nothing. After several minutes, we continued forward. The humming never returned, but the feeling of being watched did. I kept glancing over my shoulder. Every time I expected to see someone standing behind us. Every time there was only darkness. Then Dylan froze. "Guys." His flashlight pointed toward the wall. Words had been carved into the brick, deep scratches. Hundreds of them, the same sentence repeated over and over. "Don't follow the whistling," again and again and again. The message covered nearly 20 feet of wall. Nobody laughed this time. Nobody made jokes. The atmosphere had become genuinely disturbing. Then we heard it. A whistle. One single note. Somewhere ahead. Long, clear, impossible to mistake. Everyone looked toward the darkness. Another whistle followed, this time slightly closer. Dylan immediately turned around. "We're leaving." Nobody argued. We began heading back. That's when the tunnel changed. I know how that sounds, but it's the only way to describe it. The route we had taken in suddenly looked different. Side passages appeared where none had existed. Doors had vanished. Hallways curved in impossible directions. We were lost. Completely lost. Panic started setting in. The whistle sounded again. Closer, much closer. Then came footsteps, slow, measured, walking toward us. Tap, tap, tap. Our flashlights swept through the darkness. Nothing. The footsteps continued, but there was nobody there. The sound was moving, yet the tunnel remained empty. Brooke started crying. Aaron tried staying calm, but I could hear fear in his voice. We hurried through corridor after corridor. The footsteps never stopped, always behind us, always matching our pace. Then we reached an intersection and saw someone standing there, a man. At least, I think it was a man. He wore what looked like an old maintenance uniform. His back faced us. He stood perfectly still, not moving, not breathing, just standing. Aaron called out. No response. The figure remained motionless. Then slowly, its head turned. Not its body, just its head, farther than any human neck should allow, until it was looking directly at us. Even from a distance, I could see something was horribly wrong. Its face looked blurred, like a photograph smeared across glass. None of us waited to see more. We ran. The next 30 minutes were the most terrifying of my life. Every tunnel looked identical. Every turn led somewhere unfamiliar. No matter where we went, we couldn't find the door we entered through. The footsteps continued following us. Sometimes one set, sometimes many. At one point, we heard dozens of people walking in complete synchronization somewhere nearby, yet every corridor remained empty. Then, the whistling returned. This time it came from every direction. Ahead, behind, beside us. The sound echoed through the tunnels like something was trying to lure us deeper underground. We ran harder. Then Aaron suddenly stopped. His flashlight illuminated a wall. The numbers had returned. Thousands of them, covering every surface. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. The same number repeated endlessly. And among the numbers were fresh handprints, hundreds of them, as if dozens of people had pressed their palms against the wall. Some prints looked very small, like children's hands. Others looked enormous, far too large to belong to any person. Then Brooke screamed. We turned around. Several figures stood at the far end of the corridor, motionless, watching us. At least 6 of them, maybe more. Their faces were impossible to see, only silhouettes.
The figures never moved, but every time we blinked, they seemed slightly closer. We ran again.
The tunnel twisted endlessly. Then suddenly we found a staircase. None of us remembered seeing it before. We didn't care. We sprinted upward. The stairs seemed to go on forever. Finally, we reached a steel door. Aaron shoved it open. Cold night air hit our faces. We had emerged in an alley nearly 2 miles away from the shopping center. None of us understood how. We stood there in shock, exhausted, terrified, relieved to be outside. The experience was over, or so we thought. A few days later, Aaron uploaded our photos. Most looked normal, except one. A picture Brooke had taken in the hidden tunnel. The image showed us standing together. Behind us, partially concealed in darkness, stood the maintenance worker, the blurred-faced figure. Watching. None of us had seen him when the photo was taken. The worst part came later, after zooming in. Written across the front of his uniform was a faded employee badge. The number on it was clearly visible. Months later, I researched the tunnels. Eventually, I found an old newspaper archive. In 1978, a gas leak had occurred during underground construction beneath the shopping center. 11 workers died. The area was sealed shortly afterward. One detail still bothers me. According to the article, investigators never found all 11 bodies. One worker was never recovered. His name was missing from the report. No photograph, no records. Almost as if someone had intentionally erased him. I haven't returned to those tunnels. Neither have my friends. But occasionally, late at night, I'll wake up to a faint sound outside my apartment window. A single whistle, long, slow, patient, waiting. And every time I hear it, I remember the warning carved into the wall. Don't follow the whistling.